All right, so here we go. It's West Ham United versus Nottingham Forest, and this is your match preview. We've had the big man talk from Jace. We've had the big man talk from Lawless. We've had the big man talk from me and Ant. But now let's get into the serious side. By the way, if you didn't watch that last night, we'll leave a link for it at the end of the video. The Fatal 4-Way. It was quite interesting. Hope you guys are well and welcome to today's video. We'll be talking about the predicted Nottingham Forest lineup. We'll have a look at the West Ham lineup. And then we'll get into, as always, the score predictions and how this game can be won and lost. This is the match between two counter-attacking teams. You could argue two low-blocking teams, and you could argue two similar styles in management. We'll talk about all that in just a second. Once, of course, you've hit that like button. Once you've subscribed if you're new to Forest Fan TV. And just a quick announcement. On the 7th of December, we will be having a live event with Big Norm, just like we did with Psycho Stuart Pearce a couple of weeks ago. For those of you who came, I'm sure you had a great time. If you want to come to this, I'll warn you again, the tickets are completely limited and they will sell out very quickly. The link for them is in the description. I'll also pin it in the comments for you guys as well. So grab your tickets, 7th of December, and doors open, I believe, at 6:30. All right, let's jump into this and let's start with my predicted Forest lineup. Okay, as the title on the thumbnail suggests, change nothing. If possible, of course, because there may be one or two injury concerns. And I think the main injury concern we have is Tuffalo. I don't know what's up with him, why he came off. Was it a tactical substitution or was it an injury? My guess is it was an injury because he was having such a great game. And Tuffalo's just come into a great vein of form, and it would be so Forest typical that he gets injured just as that happens. So what would the alternatives be if Tuffalo is injured? Well, what I see happening if that's the scenario is obviously Tuffalo coming out. And I actually think Einar will be moved back across to the left. And then you'll have Serge Aurier, wherever he is, there he is, moving back in on the right-hand side. Now, Cooper does have a couple of options. If he wants to keep Einar at right back, which I think is probably the better position for Einar, is to then bring in maybe Nico Williams in at left back and go with a back four there. Do I see that one happening? I don't know is the honest answer, guys. What do you think is probably my question to you in the comments down below. What's the back four he will go with? For me, Einar was brilliant at right back. Niakate and Murillo, I think that's set in stone at the moment. You can't not play them after the game they both had against Aston Villa. Now, what I want to say about this team is we need some consistency now in terms of starting 11s. I can't remember the last time we played back-to-back starting 11s. And I would like to see that, even though there are a couple of positions that I maybe would tweak and change myself. For example, I still don't like Morgan Gibbs-White out wide on the right-hand side. Maybe, honestly, I'd probably think about bringing Callum Hudson-Odoi if he's fit. He's been taking some training pictures. I think he's back training as well, so he can't be a long while off. But I want to see some consistency. And that includes the likes of Danilo, who I think is one of our better, most talented youngsters coming through. But you can't start breaking up partnerships, especially if they are working. Mangala was fantastic against Villa. So was Dominguez. And Sangare probably had his best game in his Forest shirt so far in his short time at Nottingham Forest. So therefore that midfield three isn't going to change. It's the back four for me where the fullbacks may be injured. But I still wouldn't be surprised to see Tuffalo make it back. And if he doesn't, I think he will stick with Einar on the right and Williams on the left. But what do you guys think on that? In terms of the front three, as I mentioned, probably the only change I'd make, I know it sounds harsh, but unless you're going to play Morgan Gibbs-White in the 10, if Callum Hudson-Odoi is fit, maybe bring him on. But I think Taiwo is going to be the question mark as well. It's still unclear about how fit or unfit he is. Cooper's very cryptic about what's going on with him, but we did get 80 minutes out of him against Aston Villa. Therefore, I think it's very likely he will start. And you know what? I really like the shape, the balance, and the look of this team. And if we start to see this team week in, week out, one, it makes my job a lot easier in these predicted team lineups. But two, it creates more cohesion on the pitch for the players to get used to each other. So this is the team I'm going to go with. Vlachodimos in goal in a 4-3-3. Williams, Murillo, Niakate and Einar. But if Tuffalo was fit, obviously I'd bring him in at left back. Mangala, Dominguez and Sangare. Elanga, Taiwo and MGW up front. Keep it simple. Don't experiment and tweak too much. And we should be able to get something out of this. Do you guys agree with this team or not? Let me know in the comments. All right, let's have a quick look at the West Ham team because there is a lot of uncertainty about certain players. And of course, the one top of the West Ham fans hit list, and again, if you haven't seen it, check it after this video, the Fatal 4-Way with the West Ham boys, is none other than in his heart, Forest Red, Antonio. Antonio is picking up so much criticism from the West Ham fan base right now that I think Moyes will drop him. I get what they're saying about him. He is probably past it slightly. The problem they've got is what do they do in terms of replacing him? Because Ings isn't it. Ings is probably worse. Ings probably shouldn't get anywhere near their starting lineup. So what do I think West Ham could do if they did drop Antonio? Well, one question is Paqueta back and fit? If he is, then I think he will slot in. And what you'll see is probably some form of a 4-2-3-1, maybe putting Bowen up front. Personally, I'd probably just chuck Kudus up front, put Bowen on the right-hand side, Benrahma on the left, Paqueta in the middle, and then Ward-Prowse and Souček in the 6 and 8. And then in terms of their back four, Kufal I don't think is great. I don't really see who they've got who can come in that can impact it as much. So I think we may see something like this for West Ham. I don't know if they'll go Kudus up front or Kudus on the right or Bowen and then basically interchange Bowen and Kudus. But I do see Antonio being dropped. Now, David Moyes being an idiot may bring Danny Ings in as a direct replacement, maybe keep a 4-4-2 shape with them. We'll have to wait and see on this one. But West Ham are in a poor run of form, having lost 3 on the bounce. They are going to need a result, and that usually will mean a manager changes shape, changes personnel, changes a couple of players. So, depending on Paqueta, I don't know if he's suspended or injured. I think he might have had a knock, or he could be in the bookies, allegedly. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But do I think this is a strong team? Look, this is a team that's designed for counter-attacking football and designed for dead ball situations with James Ward-Prowse. He is a dead ball specialist. But does he bring much else on the pitch? The West Ham fans will tell you yes. I'll say I'm not so convinced. But in itself, his weapon from dead balls is worth having him on the pitch just for that. In terms of Souček, he's slowly winning the West Ham fans back. He had a really good first season or two where they absolutely loved him. And then he was absolutely pants last year. But he's still in there because obviously they've lost pudding rice. Overall, this team has good players. You got Mavropanos, who is the Arsenal reject that Forest were linked to over the summer, who actually said to Forest that he wasn't quite ready to come back to the Premier League. And then lo and behold, 2 weeks later, he ends up back at the Premier League. He started okay for West Ham. He is a decent defender, joking aside. But is he going to be good enough to hold off Taiwo if Taiwo starts? That is the question. Do I like this team? Yeah, I think it's a decent, solid Premier League team. You know, banter aside, I don't mind West Ham too much, but I do think a lot of their fan base think they're a lot bigger of a club than they are. And that Europa Conference Euro Trash Cup kind of tells you all you need to know about where their heads are at. So I think the team will be something like this. I don't know for sure. We'll find out after the pressers on Friday. But what did you guys think of this West Ham team? Let me know in the comments down below. And that brings us on to how I think this game is going to play out. And this is going to be an interesting one because both these managers, as I said at the start of the video, are negatively minded counter-attacking managers where the defense is their priority more so than the attacking to start with. So as I joked yesterday, you could see the ball ending up on the centre circle and no one crossing their own half. But what I think will happen in this one, West Ham will need to play as the aggressors because they are at home, because they are in need of a result. Steve Cooper will prefer it that way. The best way for West Ham to win this would literally to let Forest have the ball and then hit us on the counter-attack. And shock horror, the best way for Forest to win this will be to give West Ham the ball and then we hit them on the counter-attack, just like we did against Aston Villa. What we won't get against West Ham that we got against Villa was that crazy high line from Emery. So it won't be that easy to get in behind their defence. They will definitely play with a deeper line. So this one's probably going to be a cagey affair. It's not going to be a repeat of the scoreline from the toilet bowl last year where we held 4 and we saved Moyes. I think this one is probably going to end up a draw. I really do. A 0-0, a 1-0, something cagey like that. I think that's probably what's going to happen. But I do see a scenario where Forest do win this if we frustrate West Ham for 30 to 35 minutes. That crowd in the toilet bowl will be ready to flush the players down. And if we can do that and get their backs up, then we will have a chance to maybe sneak a 1-0 out of this. I have no fear at all from West Ham. There are no real players that scare me. I think only 2 or 3 would get into my combined 11, which we'll be doing on TikTok tomorrow. So make sure you check that out. But for me, if Forest want to win this game, we have to hold a clean sheet for the first 30 minutes and then hit them after that. But overall, I'm going to go for a draw on this one, 0-0 or 1-1. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And as I said, if you haven't checked it out already, go watch our Fatal 4-Way with Jace and Lawless. If you make sure you've hit that like button, subscribe to Forest Fan TV. We'll see you on the next video. Come on, you Reds.